Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about the mechanical tire hammer that's behind me. I've had it for a few months now and I've hammered well over 100 cymbals using it, so I finally have a baseline understanding of the best way of using this machine. It has some incredible benefits, it's got some drawbacks, it's got some limitations for sure, but I wanted to take this video to show you the process of me base shaping some cymbal blanks, some of the Reverie cymbals, as well as a couple of the TR cymbals, and then talk about my concept. And it's really going to be a video that dives into just the concept of hammering in general and what are we actually doing when we as cymbal smiths hammer bronze. What's the point of it? So let's dive in now. So this machine in particular functions, you can see the tire up here, the treadle, which is the pedal there, when you press down on the pedal, it lifts an arm up that has a motor on it with a metal cylinder that's spinning at the RPMs that it has on the motor, which I think is 1750, don't quote me on that. But it lifts the motor, it kind of tilts the motor up. That metal cylinder will make contact with the tire, which then spins the tire, and the tire has the whole attachment to lift and drop the ram, which is this guy right here. It has a shaft that kind of keeps it in the right place, and so as you use it, it's going to lift and drop, lift and drop, lift and drop. Now, it isn't variable speed. It's a manual function because you have to kind of like use the pressure of your foot on the pedal to adjust the parameters like the force, like the RPMs, and you can do that, but it takes a lot of skill. So let's turn this thing on, and you'll be able to see how it works, just dry, no cymbal in it, and then we can talk a little bit more about what we're seeing and then some of the things that I've learned from using this thing so many times. All right, so flip the switch on, motor comes on, I press down on the pedal, it lifts this up into the tire, which then turns it, drops the hammer, and as the tire's turning, it's dropping, lifting, dropping, lifting. Now, how much force I use on the pedal, the treadle, it will dictate how much force there is, and the RPMs. So if I want to go in at a slower speed, I don't press the pedal down. I kind of press it down lightly. I get a slower speed. Then I can press full down fully and get a faster speed, which also comes with more force. Now at this point it's important to talk about hammering itself, what's the point of hammering, and the kind of hammering that this thing does, and how beneficial that is to the process of shaping bronze. So when we hammer bronze, we're doing two things. We're compressing the metal and we're deforming the metal. And there are types of hammering that do more compression work and types that do more deformation. Now to think about these concepts in a simple way, if I was to take a sandbag and put it on top of my anvil and smack the cymbal, there's going to be give to the base underneath the cymbal, and so it's going to want to give more. And so if I smack on a sandbag, it's going to really move and deform the metal. Whereas compression is when you have a really hard surface underneath, you put your cymbal down, and you hammer in a way that just basically squishes and compresses the metal. It's not really moving the metal as much as it is compressing it. So we have compression, we have deformation. There are types of hammers, like the hammer that I used in Brazil, that it does mostly deformation because it has like the woodpecker, the pica-pau that they have in Brazil, has an anvil with a little concave little trough to it, so that when the cymbal's there and it's got this little concave base, the hammering just pushes it down into that concave base and it's deforming the metal into that. When you have a solid base, like the rotary hammer has a solid wheel and another wheel on top of it, and then the wheel is rolling with all the hammer heads. It's just squishing that metal. It's not really moving it as much as it is squishing it and compressing it. So this machine is great because it's doing both in a not dissimilar way to hand hammering. So when you have bounce to the hammer, so say we're talking about hand hammering, I lift my arm, I drop the hammer, and the hammer makes contact. I've got a solid base underneath, and it's hitting and bouncing off. I can do little things like I can adjust the left arm, which is holding the cymbal blank on the anvil. I can adjust it to provide a little bit of air underneath so that when I strike, I deform the metal a little bit more, or I can keep really good contact with the anvil, and I can have more compression work. So because there's a bounce to it, it's not a fixed up and down movement that has a set distance. It's always it's like playing drums when you're using molar technique. You're kind of following through, and the surface is kind of throwing the stick back at you. Very similar with hand hammering, and similar with this, because this is basically the arms of that thing are lifting the ram, dropping it, and lifting it again, and there's give in the ram to kind of come up and down. It's not fixed and a point, if that makes sense. So it's giving me the rebound that I need for compression work, but it's also powerful enough to give me deformation. So the important thing to note on this is that I have not tricked this hammer out the way that I'm going to. I have plans with the forge that made it. They're going to build me some attachments that are designed for cymbal making. They're also going to make me some new heads and new anvils for the same purpose. And what that is going to do is going to give me the option to kind of lean the hammering in one direction or the other, more deformation or more compression. Right now, this head is fairly wide and fairly flat, so it is giving me a lot of compression. Now, I'll grab a cymbal. All right, so this is a flat ride that all we've done is the base shaping on the tire hammer, and you can see this is the divots that it makes. Wide, circular, pretty flat. There's not a lot of deformation going on. And that's because it's really just compressing the metal. But because of how powerful this thing is, it's really putting a lot of force into that wide and flat area. So the difference that I've learned in using it versus doing the hand hammering method is that it really compresses the bronze and gives me a lot of, it gives me basically all the compression I could ever hope for in a round one of hammering. Then what I do is I take it to the anvil and I give it hammering, usually with a small face Turkish hammer, which is a little bit more to add in the deformation aspect, because this is just doing the lion's share of the compression work with the base shaping. And so what it's doing is it's allowing me to do less dense hammer passes. I don't have to get every surface area of the bronze covered because the hammerhead is big, the force is quite a bit, so there's a lot of compression happening and growth happening to the metal. And if I did in the beginning, I was basically like covering the whole surface with hammer marks, just because that's usually my method with hand hammering. And so at the end of it, I would get this hugely umbrella-shaped cymbal, but because it's kind of hard to control, which you'll see in a minute, it was not perfect, and so the shape was all wacky and it was super tall. So then I had to go in and hand hammer to correct shape, but then it's building it even taller. So what I realized with this machine is less is more because of the force combined with how wide the hammer strike is. So that's enough blabbering on about the concept with this thing. Let's actually see it in use. Now, what's really interesting about these Sabian blanks, that's what this one is, as opposed to the other two I did, which are Brazilian blanks. The Sabian blanks come bumped already, so this hammering, you can see, has already put my profile into a shape. It's already drawing that up. The compression work is kind of growing the shape up. So it makes it very easy once I've done this to go in and hand hammer to get the deformation that I want and get the shape that I want. And then I can go to the lathe, go back to the hand hammer station and whatnot. So this is a perfectly good base shape round on this blank to get it into a good medium-low, medium shape for finalization. Now, I might go in and do hand hammering and come back and do a little bit more tire hammering if I'm going for a super big umbrella shape, but I'm really only gonna work, if I come back to this tool, I'm really only gonna work in this section right here, from here up to the bell, to draw up the middle. I don't really want to draw this up into a huge curve because then I got to go even taller near the bell to get a usable shape. All right, so that's shaping cymbal blanks on a tire hammer. That's how I do it. You can see it's still kind of a wild and crazy process. It's not perfect, it's not exact. And that's because I'm still doing it freehand. I'm still kind of having to pull the cymbal in and push it in and adjust for the different lumps and bumps, especially on the Brazilian bronze, because those don't come bumped. So I'm having to adjust to get good contact with the anvil and then having to pull and push. And so it's not a perfect science, but you could kind of see that I was going for these sections of the cymbal. I would kind of take a portion, and I'm almost thinking of it like a pizza slice, where I want to get a good portion and I would hammer in and out, but then I would stop and my line would become more like this. So I'd go in, out, and do kind of like this run, then I would readjust out, and then kind of slowly go like that to create sections so that I can keep as even of a surface as possible on these blanks. So that's the way that I do it. With this aspect, there is still a little bit of imperfection because I am doing it freehand, which I have found is a good thing in the final result. That does allow me to get a little bit more of a funkiness to the sound. I've said this in other videos, but really the difference between a machine-made cymbal and a handmade cymbal, when I say machine, I'm talking about CNC machines that hammer perfectly uniform across the whole cymbal, is you get a brighter, cleaner sound with machine-made, you get a darker, dirtier, and funkier sound with handmade, and that's because of the imperfection that comes with just a guy swinging a hammer and trying his best to hit where he wants to, but there's always little imperfections there. That's what makes the cymbal making process so amazing to me, is the human element of it. I don't find myself inspired by machine-made cymbals hardly ever, to be honest. And I wouldn't consider using this machine making my cymbals, because I still am having to decide where the hammer strikes go and I'm very intentionally placing the blank where I want it to be so that the ram strikes where I want it. But what's interesting about this tool is it does allow me to create cleaner sounds because I'm able to use that big wide face, very heavy strike to get that much compression on the metal. I can do relatively less hammering to get the shape I want, which is a huge hallmark of cleaner sounds. The more I have to strike the metal with a hammer or use the tire hammer to get a strike on the metal, the more I do that, the darker and more complex it's getting, the more that happens. So a fully handmade cymbal where you're hand making the bell and the body and everything is gonna be a darker, dirtier sound just inherently because of every strike, hundreds and hundreds of strikes with the hammer to get the right shape and get the right bell size. When you have a pressed bell and when you're using a hammer like this to give you more compression with fewer strokes, you're able to get that shape quicker. And so I see it as like a whole different art form, a whole different craft that needs to be learned alongside of the hand hammering that I've done for years now. And now that I have both these, this machine and I have my traditional method of making, I use them in tandem with each other. I've never made a cymbal, of all the 100+ I've made, I haven't made a single cymbal that was hammered only with this because I don't really want to. I love the control and the vibe I can get from hand hammering. It's been a game changer. It is the reason, this machine is the reason why I've been able to launch the Reverie cymbal brand, which is my lower priced cymbal option. They come in at about $115 cheaper than my Timothy Roberts brand. And what I'm doing to achieve that price is just making the cymbals quicker. There's no lesser material, there's no like cheaper bronze. It's all the same bronze that I use for all of my cymbals, my high-end stuff. It's just made using a simpler process. I use this a little bit more to get the shape higher. I hand hammer all of the Reverie cymbals. I lay them the same way I do the Timothy Roberts brand. I'm just not doing as many layering processes. Sometimes with my Timothy Roberts cymbals, I'm layering 3, 4, 5 times of lathe, hammer, lathe, hammer, lathe, hammer. And that creates this level of dimension that I like for those sounds. The Reverie sounds have layering, but just 1 or 2 layers. And they are meant to be a little bit more clean in general, a little bit more clean, a little bit more forward, and a touch heavier. So I came into it saying I was gonna make heavier cymbals for rock. I'm really just making these cymbals a touch thinner so that they can translate better in live situations. I'm making rock cymbals with this brand. I got a couple 22s over there that are real heavy that I'll be putting out soon. So that's what this is doing for me, and it's been a game changer, and I'd love to know what you guys think about the concept of an independent cymbalsmith using a machine. Is this cool? Is this lame? Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. And thank you guys for watching. Please hit the subscribe and the bell if you want notifications, and keep an eye out for the next video. My name is Timothy Roberts. We'll talk to you soon.